2026 is finally here, and that means that we have officially reached the January transfer window. In today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys 12 of some of the biggest transfer rumors or already completed transfers that will be taking place this January in football's biggest leagues. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, remember to leave a comment down below and be sure to subscribe to the channel, as I'm almost at 6,000 subscribers and it's all thanks to you guys. But without further ado, let's get right into this video. Starting off with the first transfer and arguably the biggest transfer of the January transfer window, we have Antoine Semeno, who is going to Man City. Now, this is a very specific situation because Semeno does have a £65 million release clause, but it has to be triggered before January 10th. If it's after January 10th, Man City will not be able to sign Semeno. Now, obviously, Semeno has been linked with many of the Premier League's biggest clubs. You've seen him linked with Arsenal, with Liverpool, with Man United, but it does seem like Man City is the main destination for Antoine Semeno. The reason why he has to leave before January 10th is because Bournemouth want at least 20 days to find a new replacement player for Semeno if he does end up leaving Bournemouth, as he is arguably their most important player and probably one of the best performing wingers in the Premier League this season. He already has 9 goals and 3 assists for Bournemouth this season, and yes, most of his goal contributions did come earlier on in the season, and I will say that within the last few months he has slowed down in terms of his contributions, but in terms of his performances on the pitch, he is definitely one of the best wingers in the Premier League. In my opinion, if Man City do get this deal done, this is definitely a W transfer for both Man City and Antoine Semeno. Moving on to the next possible transfer, it looks like Oscar Bobb will be leaving Man City to go to Borussia Dortmund. Now, we have seen him linked with other Premier League clubs like Fulham and Crystal Palace, but in my opinion, I do think going abroad is probably the best move for Oscar Bobb. I feel like in the Premier League with Man City, yes, we've seen him shine in certain games, but he hasn't really had enough game time to really prove himself. And I feel like going to a club like Dortmund are obviously a fantastic team. They're in the Champions League. They're having a very good season. And I think Oscar Bobb could help them this season. Obviously, he's a very young winger, grew up in the Manchester City Academy, and in my opinion, he's definitely a very, very good player. Now, this move will most likely be a loan deal, but in my opinion, I think this is definitely a W transfer for both Oscar Bobb and for Borussia Dortmund as well. Moving on to the next transfer rumor, we have Upamecano to Real Madrid. Honestly, in my opinion, when Upamecano first went to Bayern Munich, for his first season, I thought he had a fantastic season. In the attack, we saw him get many assists, and even on the defensive end, he was performing pretty good. But then for the next couple seasons, I thought that he was performing way under his level. I don't think he was performing that good for Bayern Munich. Obviously, during that time, they did lose that Bundesliga title to Bayer Leverkusen, which was a little bit of a shock. But in those couple seasons, I don't think that Upamecano looked like the best defender, and I was starting to think that he was a little bit overrated. But last season and so far this season, he has been absolutely fantastic for Bayern Munich. He looks much better than he did a couple seasons ago in terms of his defending, his tackling, and even his capabilities pushing forward and helping with the attack. I think he's a fantastic defender. Now, would this be useful for Real Madrid? In my opinion, it will definitely be very, very useful for them. Obviously, they have a lot of incredible defenders. They have players like Højlund, they have Eder Militao, they still have players like Rudiger and Alaba, but a few of their center backs are starting to get up there in age. And this season, they've had so many injuries, it's crazy. We've seen almost all of their center backs be injured at least once this season, and it's been a real struggle for Real Madrid. Obviously, they were leading the La Liga title race, but they have recently lost it to Barcelona, as they currently sit in first place. And with all the injuries they've been having to their back line, we've been seeing them play so many players out of position. For that reason, if Upamecano does go to Real Madrid, I think this will definitely be a W transfer. I think this will be an amazing transfer for both the player and the club. Moving on to the next transfer, we have Nicholas Fulkrug to AC Milan. I feel like they always sign old strikers. When was the last time they had a young striker other than Santi Jimenez? We've seen them with Ibrahimovic, we've seen them with Morata, now we're seeing them with Fulkrug. They're all older players, and I'm not really sure why they go down this route of getting players when, in my opinion, I think they're past their prime, rather than getting young players that have a lot of talent and a lot of upcoming capabilities. But hey, I guess that's just what Milan do. I don't think this is a good transfer. We've seen Nicholas Fulkrug for 2 seasons now with West Ham, and to be honest, he hasn't done much. He scored 3 goals in total. Now, to be fair, he has suffered from injuries, and West Ham in general as a squad and as a club haven't been the best recently. This season, they have been very, very poor, and I feel like Nicholas Fulkrug not getting many goals is a result of his team being very bad. But I still don't think this is the right transfer for AC Milan. Could it work? Yes, there is a slight possibility. Obviously, they don't really have a pure out-and-out striker, and it's a very cheap transfer. He will most likely go there on loan, and AC Milan won't be paying more than a few million. So it could work out. There is very, very low risk, but in my opinion, it's just not really the player that they need. So in my opinion, this is definitely an L transfer. Moving on to the next transfer rumor, we have Kobbie Mainoo to Napoli. I've been hearing so many people saying that this is an incredible move for Kobbie Mainoo. Obviously, he hasn't been playing much at Man United, Napoli. We've seen players like Scott McTominay, Rasmus Højlund come from Manchester United and go to Napoli and perform absolutely incredibly. But in my opinion, I just don't think this is the right move for Kobbie Mainoo. First of all, I think Ruben is kind of stupid for not starting him. Like, that's just absolutely crazy. He has not started a single game so far this season, and for how good of a talent he is, I think he's honestly being wasted sitting on the Man United bench. But will he get more game time at Napoli? Yes, he will get more game time, but in my opinion, I don't think he's going to be a starter at Napoli. If you look at Napoli, the midfield has really been an area of concern for them this season. Obviously, at the start of the season, we saw them performing not the best. And one of the reasons for that, in my opinion, was because Antonio Conte didn't know what his best starting 11 was. And in the midfield, he was always trying to shoehorn all these players in. De Bruyne, Zamboanguissa, Lobotka, McTominay, Gilmore. He was trying to shoehorn all of the midfielders that Napoli have into that midfield, but they have too many. Honestly, they have too many midfielders. They need 3. They have 3. They have about 5, and Kobbie Mainoo will be about 6. They don't really need 6 midfielders, especially a young player like Kobbie Mainoo who hasn't been starting out all this season. I don't think he's the right player for Napoli. In my opinion, Billy Gilmore, Scott McTominay, Kevin De Bruyne, Zamboanguissa, Lobotka will all start over Kobbie Mainoo. So that makes him the 6th option in that midfield position. I don't think it's worth it for him. I don't think it's worth it for Man United, and I don't think it's worth it for Napoli. Now, if he does make this move, it will most likely be on loan. But in my opinion, I think this would be an L transfer. Moving on to the next transfer, we have Endrick, who is leaving Real Madrid and joining Olympique Lyon. Now, this transfer has already been finalized. He is moving to Lyon on a 6-month loan, and in the summer, Real Madrid will be getting him back. And I think that this is a very good transfer for Endrick. Obviously, at Real Madrid, he hasn't been what he was made up to be. Obviously, before the transfer, everyone was talking to him about this wonder kid from Brazil, the next Pele, goes to Real Madrid and is just sitting on the bench every single game. He has not had many starts for Real Madrid. Yes, in the games that he has played, he has shown good qualities. We've seen him score a few goals with Real Madrid already, but realistically, he has not been playing as much as he would like, and a lot of other people would like as well. Lyon did lose a lot of star talent in the summer. Obviously, we see Ryan Cherki currently playing for Man City, and he's balling out. But even some of the other players, especially on the attacking end, they did lose a few key players. And I think bringing in a young player like Endrick, who has a lot to prove after not being able to play with Real Madrid, I think he will do good for Olympique Lyon. And in a season where they haven't looked as good as they should be in the Liga, but they're doing absolutely incredibly in the Europa League, currently sitting in 1st place, I think he can definitely help out this team. So in my opinion, I think this is a W transfer. Moving on to the next transfer, we have Conor Gallagher, who will be leaving Atletico Madrid and joining Man United. This is another transfer that's only a rumor and it hasn't been finalized yet, but do I think that this is a good transfer for Man United? I think they could do better. I think they are linked with other players that would help their team more than Conor Gallagher. Do I think Conor Gallagher is a good player? Yes. With Chelsea, he was amazing. With Crystal Palace, he was fantastic. But so far at Atletico Madrid, I do think he has been underperforming slightly. We've seen him play about 75 games for the club so far. He's gotten a few goals, a few assists, but I don't feel like he's really made a big impact on that team. In the middle of the pitch, he's usually playing in the center, sometimes on the left side. And I do feel like he's a good player, but I still think there's a lot to be desired. Obviously, he's still a young player. He's only 25 and he's not in his prime yet. But I think he can make better defensive decisions. I think he can make better tackles. And sometimes I think he's a little bit rash, and sometimes he gets cards that realistically he shouldn't be getting. In my opinion, I don't think Conor Gallagher has had the best season so far with Atletico Madrid. So I think that if he does move to Man United, this would be an L. But what would be a W transfer for Man United is Ruben Neves, who may be leaving Al Hilal and joining them. I think this would be a good transfer for Man United. Now, let me first say this. I thought Ruben Neves was like 35. Honestly, for the last few years, I thought this guy was at least in his 30s. Like, he looks pretty old, but he's only 28 years old. He's playing amazing football this season with Al Hilal, and I think this would be a very good transfer for Man United. Obviously, we've seen a lot of problems with Man United's team, especially with their midfield and with certain players like Manuel Ugarte and Casemiro. Now, this season, I will say players like Casemiro have been absolutely fantastic, but Manuel Ugarte, he's just not the right player for Man United. This guy looks very, very poor every time I see him on the ball, and bringing in a player like Ruben Neves, who has that Premier League experience playing for multiple seasons with Wolves, and he has that leadership quality that you need in that midfield, playing behind Bruno Fernandes, playing alongside a player like Casemiro. I think this would be an incredible transfer for Man United. And obviously, he has those Portuguese links with Bruno Fernandes, with the manager. I think this would be a W transfer. Moving on to the next transfer, we have Claudio Echeverri to Girona. This is a little bit of a strange one because Echeverri, obviously, we saw him a few years ago with River Plate as he grew up in Argentina, and he was absolutely fantastic. A very young player, born in 2006, and his qualities playing in that attacking midfield position were incredible with River Plate. But with Man City, he never really got the chance, and then obviously he did go on loan to Bayer Leverkusen, where once again he wasn't playing that much football. I think that going to a team like Girona, who obviously a few seasons ago we saw them perform absolutely incredibly in the La Liga, where they finished in 3rd place, but last season they were very poor, finishing in 16th place, and currently they sit near the relegation zone. At the moment of recording this video, they're currently sitting in 18th place. So they really need to get out of that relegation zone, and I think Echeverri is a good player to help them do that. Like I said, he's a very young player, and over the years with Man City, with Bayer Leverkusen, he hasn't gotten too much game time, but at a team like Girona, I think he will definitely be a starter in that team, and they can definitely help them move up the table. So I think this is definitely a W transfer. Moving on to the next transfer rumor, we have Omar Marmoush to Tottenham. Honestly, this is a little bit of a strange one because so far with Man City, last season and this season combined, he's played 40 games, he's scored 9 goals, and he's been decent on the attack. But so far this season, he hasn't really had that same impact. We've only seen him start in 2 games. We saw him get an assist, but that's pretty much it. Now, he has suffered with small injuries here and there, and I think he's a good player. If you remember him at Frankfurt, he was absolutely fantastic. He was scoring every single game in his last season for Frankfurt. So I think him going to Tottenham, it could definitely be a good move. But Tottenham do have a lot of players that I think are very similar to Omar Marmoush. They have a lot of attackers who can play across the front 3, but don't really specialize in a specific position. And Marmoush is another one of those players where he can play a striker, he can play the attacking midfield, he can play on the left side, but he doesn't really have a primary position. So will this be help for Tottenham? Yes, obviously he's a good player. He can score goals. We've seen him do it multiple times, but I do think it could cause a little bit of confusion in that front line. But with all that being said, if Marmoush does go to Tottenham, I still think this would be a W transfer. Moving on to the next transfer, we have Ederson, who will be leaving Atalanta and joining Galatasaray. Now, this is not 100% confirmed, but there is a high possibility that this move does happen, and I think this could definitely be a problem for Atalanta. I think Ederson, within the last 3 years he's been at Atalanta, he's been a very, very important player for them, playing right in that midfield position, playing as a central midfielder, sometimes playing as a DM. And I think he's a fantastic player. Yes, he doesn't get the goals or the assists that you may like to see, but the way he passes the ball, the way he dribbles, the way he always finds players in open space, I think he's a very important player for Atalanta, and this would definitely be a bad move for Atalanta in my opinion. But for Galatasaray, I think this would be a good transfer. Obviously, we've seen them in recent years make some crazy transfers, and I think they have a very, very good team, and bringing Ederson into that midfield would definitely help them a lot. So I think this is a W transfer for Galatasaray. And finally, the last transfer I'm going to talk about is Brennan Johnson, who will be leaving Tottenham and maybe joining Crystal Palace. Once again, this is only a rumor, but I think this would be a very good transfer for Crystal Palace. But for Tottenham, I don't think this is what they need. I think Brennan Johnson, yes, obviously he's not a main starter for their team. We've seen him start 6 games this season. He's already scored 2 goals. And he's been kind of in and out of the squad ever since he's been at Tottenham from leaving Nottingham Forest. But I think he's a very important player. I think he has the ability to play on the left, to play on the right, to play in the middle. and he always comes up with clutch goals. Obviously, he did it in the Europa League final, which is probably the most important goal in Tottenham's history. But even in the Premier League, when he comes off the bench, when he starts, he always seems to have positive impact to this Tottenham 11. So I don't really think this is a good transfer for Tottenham. But if he does go to Crystal Palace, this will definitely help them. Obviously, we've seen their attack be a little bit lackluster in recent games, and that's why they haven't been performing that good over the last few months in the Premier League. But if they do sign Brennan Johnson, I think he will definitely be a help to their team. So I think this is definitely a W transfer for Crystal Palace. And that's the end of this video. Those are all the biggest league transfers in the 2026 transfer window. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more videos.